I should not be surprised that as soon as I finished my videos on using World Scripter to inject custom CSS styling into Foundry, that they would immediately become out of date. Foundry version 14 has been released, but the World Scripter module that my previous method utilized has not been updated, and the module author has not updated that module in almost a year. While it's possible that you can wait for the module to be updated, it's become clear to me that if you want to use the newest version of Foundry, a new method will be required. My updated method involves creating a module to contain your adapted or original adventure content in. Creating a module makes your content portable, ensures that your CSS styling will work on any Foundry instance you bring the module to, and most importantly, it's not dependent on any other community modules like WorldScripter. I'm going to show you the fastest possible method first, then a method you can customize, and finally an advanced technique that I prefer. To begin, copy this link on my GitHub page. This will also be available in the description. Open your add-on modules page in Foundry. This will work on Foundry version 13 and the current version 14. Press the Install Module button. In the manifest URL, paste the link you copied and press the Install button. Click to the Game Worlds tab and open a world of your choosing. Once the world is loaded, open the Settings menu, and under Settings and Configuration, click the Module Management button. Inside of this menu, click the checkbox and Save Module Settings and reload. Once the world reloads, click on the Compendium packs, and you'll see the module has been installed. Click this pack, click the Journal Examples Adventure, and click Import Adventure. You should now see that you have 3 journals from me, one with some basic letters that you can copy and paste, one with the CSS guide in a very basic format, and one with HTML examples from me that you can study for your own use. I made this module because I want CSS in Foundry to be as accessible to everyone as possible. I can't promise that anything crazy will ever get added to the module, but I'll do my best to keep it up to date with Foundry, so when the next major version comes out, I'll try and update the module if it needs it. My module does have a major limitation though. It doesn't know what you want your journals to look like. I can't write enough style rules to cover that, and more importantly, if you modify the CSS file my module gives you, which you're welcome to do, your changes might get wiped away if I push an update to the module. For these reasons, I think you should obviously try my module out, but I think you should view it as a demo. It's free and it's fast, but in order to get the full experience, you're going to need to make your own module, which is what I'm going to teach you next. To start making your own module in Foundry, open the Add-on Modules page and click the gear icon. You will need to fill out some parts of this module page. I'll explain which options are most important. If you make a mistake while filling out the module details, don't panic. You can edit the module.json file directly to correct any mistakes or add any information later. There's also an article from the Foundry devs that'll explain each of these options in further detail as well. For the package title, you can name your module anything you'd like. For my example, I'm naming mine Terrific Tutorial. Once you click out of that box, the package identifier should automatically translate your package title to a lowercase and hyphenated package identifier. You will not need to change the package version unless you're planning on making your module accessible to the public. If you're planning on updating the module for other people, you may have some sort of version system that you want to use to differentiate between older and newer versions of your module. Similarly, the package URL is only important if you want users who download your module to have a README page where they can learn more about what your module does and how to use it. Under compatibility, the minimum version and the verified version will automatically be set to the current version of Foundry, and this is fine for your use. If your module is going to work on other versions, you can change that For my example, I'm going to change this to minimum version 13, because this module will work on version 13 as well. Once again, if you're planning on updating this module for other people or giving or selling it to them, you can add author details so that they can find you better. But for our purposes, we're not selling our module, we're just making it for ourselves, so we don't need an author. You are going to want to create a compendium pack. This is going to create the compendium within your world where you can drag and drop all of your journals, actors, magic items, spells, anything that's going to be needed to run your module. For the label, you can type whatever you want, but I'm going to be unoriginal and just type the same as the package title. You are going to need to update the name though, and that's going to need to be lowercase and hyphenated. For the document type, the adventure type is a great catch-all because you can put anything inside of it. But if your module only had journals in it, you could pick the journal entry type. If it only had maps, you could pick the scene type, and so on and so forth. If your module is only going to work with one specific system, such as Pathfinder 2nd edition or Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you can choose that system in the required system. But if you leave it blank, Foundry will assume that your module will work with any system. Once you press the Create Module button at the bottom of this window, Foundry will create the folder in the modules directory and create a module.json file in that folder. From here, you're going to need to navigate to your Foundry directory and open up the modules folder. And here we can see that the terrific tutorial folder exists, and there's the module.json. To keep ourselves organized, we're going to want to create a few more folders. I recommend having an assets folder and also a styles folder. If you're planning on having a lot of scripts, you could create a scripts folder, but we're only going to use one script in this tutorial, so we'll just leave that one loose in the base folder. Let me tell you a little bit about how I organize my assets folder. If your module is going to have more than one adventure installed when you install the module, you can separate each adventure in the assets folder by the title of that adventure. For my tutorials, I usually use Troubles in Otari, so I could have a folder for Troubles in Otari, and I might have a separate folder if I was going to include Crown of the Kobold King. Whoops, that's a big typo. Crown of the Kobold King, only 2 Ks. Within an adventure, I recommend having a couple different folders, and I'm copying this from the official Beginner Box module. You're going to want one for portraits, which is the full art of characters, one for tokens, which is the token art that you drag and drop onto the map. You're also going to want one for maps, where the tokens are going to go. And finally, a catch-all folder for journal images. And that's going to have any key art or item art that doesn't really fit in with these other categories. Next, let's take a look at your styles folder, and we just need one new folder within the styles, and that is going to be a fonts folder. Any fonts that are going to be installed with your module that your CSS rules are going to require should go into this folder. And right here in the base styles folder is where we're going to put a text file. This is going to be where your CSS file is. You can just create a text file, or you can use Visual Studio to create a text file. No matter what, just make sure you save the end as a .css. In Windows, it's going to yell at me, but you can say yes, don't need to worry about it. For the next step, we're going to need to go back to that module.json file, and we want to open this up in Visual Studio. We need to put a little chunk of code into this file to direct Foundry to load the CSS file we just created whenever you load the module. That code looks like this on your screen. You can press the copy button from my GitHub, And I like to paste this right after the packs, right where that bracket ends with a comma. I press enter and I paste it in. If you copy it from my GitHub, it should be spaced correctly. And I do need to tweak this to match the exact name of the CSS file I created. Then I press Ctrl S, and that saves the file. Now that you've saved that file, you can open up your world in Foundry. Just like you did when you installed my module, you need to go to Settings and Module Management, and press the check mark to enable your new module, and click Save Module Settings, and Foundry will reload. After the reload, when you open the compendium packs, you'll see your empty compendium right here, and any journals that you have existing in Foundry can be dragged and dropped into an adventure you create here. At this point, you're clear to start editing your CSS file as in my previous tutorials. You can add in any style rule that you want. You just need to make sure that the journals you write have the HTML classes to match your CSS file. However, there is a forbidden technique that I can teach you that will make it easier to have multiple styles in a single module. I like to have all of the adventures I've converted in one single module because it makes it easier for me to have multiple adventures in the compendium and then import whatever adventure I plan on running. One of the benefits of this for me is that it saves me on space because I can have common assets like the pictures of skeletons or zombies in the main folder, and I don't need to repeat them for every single adventure. While the base installation of that module is going to be bigger than any smaller module would be, the benefit is that you'll have less issues organizing yourself, and you'll also be able to maintain backups easier because you only have one module to maintain. You can certainly make multiple little modules using the method that I just taught you, and you can keep each module up to date if you like, but for me, I'd rather just have one module that keeps everything inside of it. To do that, we're going to need to write a little bit of code, and we're going to need to edit our module.json file again. To start, head back to your module directory, and in the main folder of your module, in our case, Terrific Tutorial, right-click, and create another text document. This time, we're saving this as a .mjs file. An MJS file is just a file that contains JavaScript code. Again, Windows sends us a warning that we ignore. And now let's open this MJS file in Visual Studio. Next, let's copy this code from Step 1, Part 3 on my GitHub guide and paste that into our MJS file. We need to make sure that this module ID here matches exactly with the name at the top of your module.json. Terrific tutorial here needs to match terrific tutorial here with the hyphen. This tiny little scrap of code here just sends a message to the console log whenever Foundry is loaded and the module is loaded. That way you can check and see if for some reason the module isn't loading. Under Part 4, Step 1 of my guide, there's another set of code that we're going to copy here. This code comes to us from Reddit user v14. What this code is going to do is create a journal sheet that we can set on each individual journal that we want to use it on. The parts that you're going to want to change are the class here, TO, and that needs to match over here under the hook. And I am typically just using the uppercase abbreviation of the adventure. This is important. This here needs to be a lowercase class that you write code for in your CSS file. So for troubles in Otari, I'm again just using the lowercase version here. For the label, just make sure that the label is readable to you. You can set it to the full name of the adventure. You don't need to abbreviate. Once you've got your .mjs file situated, we need to point Foundry to this file. To do that, open your module.json again. And after your styles, we're going to insert another piece of code. You can copy this from my GitHub, but we just need to copy ES modules and make sure that the file path matches. So after styles, I'm going to paste it. And we just need to make sure that we change that again to terrifictutorial.mjs. Go ahead and save that module. Once you've got the module.json saved, reload Foundry again and start by opening any journal in Foundry. I created this tutorial journal, which is empty, and we're going to click the three dots here and click the Configure Sheet option. Here under Document, you can click on the tab for this sheet and set it to Troubles in Otari and click Save. What that has done for us is apply the class TIO to this entire journal. Whenever you want to add a new style to this module, you simply go back to your MJS file, copy and paste this section of code, and change the relevant portions, the class down here with the lowercase, and the label. You can have multiple different styles, and each style will apply only to the journals that you select in Foundry. From here, you're clear to follow my previous guides on how to write CSS rules. I want to briefly mention that my GitHub has been updated. If you would prefer to continue using the world scripter method, my tutorial for that still exists. You just need to click under the branches and click Archive. And the same old guide will be there for you. That's all from me for now. Happy pathfinding, Dungeons and Dragoning, morkborging, dagger harding, draw stealing, or any system that you plan to run in Foundry.